Triggers. I'm Duan Felipe Escobar Munoz. I'm Bachelor English as a foreign language. In this chance, I'm going to explain the final exam about the research project course. So let's begin. Introduction and general background. They use pedagogical strategies based on traditional activities focus on the learning of grammar rules, vocabulary, translation, reading, um, and writing and making English class for children from the era of fifth grade and little motivating and natural activity. The use of create activities such as play of singing and music and strengthen the acquisition of skills such as pronunciation and specific of vocabulary and grammar. Still in a problem. The matter is further complicated when the scope of work of teachers in primary schools or schools has become evident that children between the age of 8 and 12 years old perceive the environment and learn differently according to Gomez. In general, children in primary education are in the period of so-called concrete duke. Therefore, they conceptualize concrete issues better than abstract ones. The use of traditional methods and the teaching of the English language, such as the grammatical approach, turned out to be a little motivating for the student, turning English class into a natural activity and that takes place in the school. On the contrary, the use of the game manifests itself as a more natural process, especially in primary education. Although its application is valid for all age, for elements or purpose in use will help strengthen the acquisition of skills such as pronunciation, specific knowledge of vocabulary and grammar, while encouraging teamwork, sociability, creative ability, and communication skill of students. Research objectives. So we get main objective and specific objectives in relation to the main objective. It's convenient to relate the problem that is being committed to the corporate in order to determine the strategy. Setting scope to achievement emphasis in addressing the process of teaching fans to achieve the required competence in relation to meaningful and effective learning. About specific abilities, we get the following. Design and develop pilot didactic activities based on music, on singing games, and videos, and ICT to determine their effectiveness and relevance in the classroom, and evaluate the progress and achievement is important to our objectives. About discoveries. Um, Therefore, it becomes more than necessary acquisition of commitment in terms of teaching in order to show signs of motivation for professionals who will be the face of new generations. For this, it becomes required to adopt responsibilities that take us to the inspection of the surrounding pedagogical modules in educational environments. Mm, Innovating about real-life content, providing professionals with set knowledge, competence, knowledge now how and what to do in order to be prepared to solve the problems of their environments and significant contribution to welfare of society. And about the limitation of leadership, like with the lack of concordance of time between the actors involved in the problematic situation can be very recurring since not all of them have the necessary availability. to the executing terrain plans and being able to present means understanding the such situation and fit behaviors within the ethical action and moral. Well, continue. Significance of the study. Um, Language is absolutely central to our learning. Without you cannot make sense or communicate something. For these people will need to develop your language skill. For example, we must understand and make the most effective use of your study material and develop the special language and vocabulary necessary. We must interpret a given question as an appropriate material for your use, or we must write well structured and coherently present a six-minute language is absolutely central to your learning. Without you cannot make sense or communicate your understanding of a subject. About literature review, overview of previous studies. We get the lack motivation in schoolmates and not be seat faults. Mm, despite this, other conclusion tell us about the parent work in the motivation process and express researchers also suggest parents help their students see the bigger picture. And group of researchers released a report in March 2014 that found when students have a clear sense of purpose in their school work life, for example, that it will help them become a contributing member of society. They're more likely to feel motivated. With this last, we understand there are some genetic factors which can influence over the motivation, but there are also community and family factors which enhance or limit whatever process. Also, this study expressed and confirmed that the variety of ways for achieve motivate a person according to his age or interest. So we get another. There is some more lack of motivation from the students as teacher was. Her research the study offer as the next. The reason of lack motivation in students is difficulty in concentration and habit of solving multiple choice questions, overloading language lesson hours, syllables, health problems, shortage of material. For example, times when students feel motivated toward a lesson, start new subject, times of communication, when providing positive reinforcing and attractive materials appear on examples. Another techniques and methods that can increase student level of participation, teachers' role in fostering student. Well, about relate previous stories, we gave four motivates and behavior. Firstly, mm, sometimes it's useful to think of motivation as something inside student rather than student behavior, but equivalent to student our behavior. Science expression we find that it's necessary to take into account the attitude and external behavior. We expressing some student because it's a good resource for understanding what's happening inside each student. We have to recognize too that is not an easy task because into the classroom and according to the education characteristics, the time spent for a class may not be enough. Mm, and motives has goals. In this case, the theory tells us the importance of purpose how to build inside the students some relevant goals with the intention of enhance the global vision and give the student a purposeful work study and keep forward. Their motives as interest, sorry. Mm, in addition to all the different kinds of goals, with consequent difference in academic motivation, students show how the difference in level of interest in the topic and tasks of the classroom. Inside the story is very important to recognize the interests of each student because based on it's possible to build and develop the correct strategies and improve the student development. Um, the last motivation has self-efficacy. Mm, about this, self-efficacy is the belief that you are capable of carrying out a specific task or reaching a specific goal. Here it's important in each student the self-confidence and help them recognize and accept they are able to solve, develop, and achieve whatever they dream. Well, at chapter 3, research framework, we get theoretical framework and conceptual framework. Well, moving to the about theoretical framework, moving to the school context and taking into account the character intentional human behavior, it's a clear that attitudes, perception, expectation, and representation that the student has of himself that's to be performed and the goals he intends to achieve are factors that guide and direct the student behavior and the academic field. But you also have to take into account the external variables coming from the context in which the students operate with influence them. Therefore, motivation in the students interest in their own learning or by the activities that led to it. Interest can be acquired, maintained, or increased depending on intrinsic and extrinsic elements. They must be distinguished from what has traditionally been called in the classroom motivation, which is nothing more than what the teacher does so that students are motivated to enter the subject. Without the above, we can say that school motivation is the process by which behavior is initiated and direct towards the achievement of a goal. About conceptual framework, um, we get retired student direct from the above. Um, for example, the mind-oriented subjects who have school success we consider capable have high achievement, motivation, and strong self-confidence. Those who accept failure in the face after presenting a deteriorated self-image and manifest a feeling of hopeless learner and thus they have learned that control about the environment is extremely difficult or impossible and therefore give up before. And those who avoid failure, those students who lack a fierce sense of aptitude and self-esteem and put little effort into your performance to protect your image from a possible failure. The resort to strategies has a minimum participation in the classroom class, relying completing tax-free tests and exams. The skill effort set evaluates being too risky for the students, and if they are successful to say that a little no effort was invested in this brilliance, that is they are very skilled. About this shared hypothesis, we get that the motivation for its great importance in the predisposition of the subject of learning implies that the teacher is the motivation technique aimed at generating in students positive attitudes towards the assimilation of the contents and studying inside and outside the classroom. So it's necessary for the student and develop his interest in learning in different pedagogical scenarios and the individual or group level. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. So bye bye. God bless you.